Okay, and now we're live on YouTube. Okay then, so good afternoon, everyone. Today is August 1st, 2020. This is a meeting of the members of the State Liquor Authority being conducted kind of in Albany. Present today by phone is Chairman Bradley. Chairman Bradley, can you just check in for a second?
Yes, I'm here, Tom.
Also, we have Commissioner Ford, who's here by video, can be seen on the meeting. Commissioner Fan, who's also participating by video. And we have Council Meyerhoff, who's also attending by video. Myself, Secretary Donahue, here in the Albany offices. All right, we have 5 matters on today's calendar. They are all requests from Council's office for summary orders of suspension. The first item, 929K, New York OP 127-1317, Morelia Mexican Restaurant, Inc.
Yes, good afternoon. Stephen Armstrong on behalf of Council's office in support of the summary suspension of license number 127-1317. Morelia Mexican Restaurant Incorporated, doing business as Made in Mexico, located at 3950 10th Avenue in Manhattan. This premises is licensed as a restaurant serving liquor, wine, beer, and cider. It's first licensed in July of 2014. Method of operation is recorded music only, no dancing, 1 security guard, and principals will manage. It's located in a primarily commercial neighborhood, right next to the elevated subway tracks that run along 10th Avenue. This establishment has a significant adverse history. They've paid more than $18,000 in fines since 2017. Things like sustained patterns of noise, overcrowding, and failure to conform to application. As to the executive order violations, last night, July 31st, from approximately 8:35 to 8:50 p.m., investigators from the Executive Order Task Force conducted surveillance of the premises. As you can see from the photos, the situation outside the establishment was somewhat chaotic. Investigators observed at least 75 patrons seated and standing in front of and around the premises. The outdoor dining area had been extended far beyond the frontage of the establishment in both directions. The tables that had been set up did not appear to be properly distanced. There were groups of 10 or more patrons seated at the same tables. In the approximately 15 minutes investigators spent at the location, they observed numerous parties purchasing alcohol in open containers without any accompanying food order, groups of individuals with alcoholic beverages standing around the outdoor dining area, not observing social distancing, as well as many staff and patrons observed without masks. Now, based on this report and the accompanying photos, this licensee was clearly not operating in compliance with Governor's Executive Orders 202.38 and 202.43, which, along with SLA and Department of Health guidance, govern how licensees can safely operate in outdoor dining area. This licensee ignoring that guidance poses a threat to the public health, safety, and welfare. And based on this record, I ask the members vote to summarily suspend this license pursuant to Section 413 of the State Administrative Procedure Act. Thank you.
All right then, Commissioner Fan, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Ford?
I don't have any questions.
Chairman Bradley?
I don't have any questions.
All right then, I will call for your vote. Commissioner Fan?
This licensee, as council outlined, has committed multiple violations of the governor's executive by allowing open containers around his establishment within 100 feet and not following the outdoor dining guidelines, having way too many people standing, way expanded coverage in front of his establishment. There's also not sufficient use of face masks and insufficient providing of food items along with the drinks. And this licensee has a long history with our agency, and they should know better. They have been warned, and they continue to violate the existing executive orders. And so due to imminent threat to public health, safety, and welfare, I'm voting to summarily suspend this license.
Commissioner Ford, your vote.
I would only add to that there were over 75 patrons counted approximately that were congregating and ignoring social distancing protocol and not wearing face masks. So I vote to summarily suspend as well.
And Chairman Bradley.
I vote to summarily suspend. It's obvious that the activity here was a threat to the public health based on the observed violations of the EO, and the licensee clearly is making no attempt to abide by them, so I vote to summarily suspend.
Thank you. The next item, 929L, Bronx OP 1288336. It's 138 West Fordham Road, Food Corp.
Good afternoon. Office of Counsel submits the subject licensee, 138 West Fordham Road Food Corp, doing business as Focus, located at 136-138 West Fordham Road, New York, to the members of the authority to consider it for an emergency order suspension of their retail OP license pursuant to Section 4013 of the State Administrative Act. This license was issued on September 24, 2015, to operate as a restaurant with live and recorded music, no dancing, and 5 security guards. The sole principal is Tamara Espinal, and the establishment is located in a mixed-use, predominantly residential area. The SLA received information recently that this establishment has been allowing their patrons to purchase alcohol beverages in violation of the multiple guidelines on restrictions promulgated by the SLA in connection with the governor's order, specifically 202.38 and 202.43. And this type of conduct is standing and congregating on premises, employees wearing face masks and patrons not wearing masks is either one. These ones has become on both the SLA and the police department. Violations are dangerous to the public health and safety, and despite a warning from the department and the task, the licensee continues to operate in the same manner. The members have no confidence that this conduct will not continue in some respects. Now, what prompted an investigation last night was information that we received on July 24th in connection with this premises. Lieutenant Conforti reported that there were approximately 10 people standing, congregating, and loitering on the sidewalk without masks in front of the premises at approximately 11 o'clock p.m. We had not received a referral yet on that particular incident, but we did receive photographs that depicted exactly what the lieutenant had alleged, phone conversation. But last night, July 31st, at approximately a little after 11, was in operation. Investigators from the task force observed food still being served along with approximately 45 individuals. Some were sitting, some were standing in front of the sidewalk of the establishment and also into the roadway. They were not socially distanced and not wearing face masks. One server was observed not wearing a face mask. Additionally, the licensee expanded its footprint by expanding the tables to the next storefront and on the sidewalk, leaving a 4-foot clearance for pedestrians instead of the requisite 8. And this is in violation of the New York City open with respect to the sitting criteria. There were other violations noted as well, specifically unsecured compressed gas tanks, selling hookah without a permit, illegal door hardware, and side bolts. There's one prior NOP involving executive order violations and involved 2 servers as well as a manager not wearing their face mask properly. And this notice of pleading went out just July 25th. Now, it is important to realize that this licensee has imposed a threat to the public health and safety, not just during the pandemic, but before. There's an open case, 124462, which alleges that on 4 separate occasions, this individual and their staff stole to underage police agents. That case is currently pending and will be set for hearing when it's practical. Based on the police records we reviewed, our discussion with SLA Charlie Stravali and Lieutenant Conforti, counsel's office has commenced revocation proceedings against this licensee. The executive order was designed to prevent the spread of this deadly virus, and this licensee poses an imminent risk to the public and has shown that his inability to conduct his business in a fashion that is safe to do so. This conduct has been shown during the pandemic and before. and we have little confidence that this location will adhere to any legal requirements going forward in the future. We respectfully request the members summarily suspend this license.
Okay, then Commissioner Fan, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Ford, do you have any questions?
No, I have no questions. Nice job, counsel.
Thank you.
Chairman Bradley, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have one question. You mentioned that Lieutenant Conforti was there from the NYPD on the 24th and made observations. Is he intending to send that referral, and will that be added to this case as well?
That is correct, Chairman. That is my understanding. Ms. Martico had some communications with, I think, Lieutenant Conforti just yesterday. Investigator Chevali, who I spoke with today, told me that that report will be forthcoming.
Okay, so there'll be additional charges in spite of what you're even charging today.
That's correct. I didn't want to include that on the notice of pleading, which I prepared without the evidence before me.
Yeah, you shouldn't have. No, I'm not saying you should have, but just make sure that it does follow up with it. Thanks.
Will do.
Okay, then Commissioner, I'll call for your votes. Commissioner Fan?
As counsel outlined, this licensee has committed multiple violations of the governor's executive orders, namely 202.6, 202.38, and 202.43, by allowing groups of patrons standing around in front of the establishment on multiple evenings, and allowing service way beyond the curfew time of 11 p.m. and allowing patrons and employees to move around without the appropriate mask protection. This licensee has a significant history with our agency and really should know that he needs to comply with the governor's executive order due to imminent threat to public health, safety, and welfare. I'm voting to summarily suspend this license.
All right, then Commissioner Ford, your vote.
With a large group congregating, at least 45 people on the streets and sidewalks on the 31st of July, open past the 11 p.m. curfew with full meals still being prepared in the kitchen. Expanded tables outside in front of the next storefront, less than 4-foot sidewalk clearance instead of the required 8, indoor consumption, alcohol sales to go without food, employees not wearing face coverings, patrons standing, ignoring social distancing, hookah being smoked out front, unsecured gas tanks, improper cooking ventilation, a dead-bolted exit, extension cords being used as permanent wiring. I think they pretty much hit it all. And so I vote to summarily suspend as well.
Chairman Bradley?
Yeah, I'm going to vote to summarily suspend based on the summaries given by both commissioners.
Thank you. Next item, 929M, New York OP 1126488, Pasta La Vista, Inc.
Good morning, members. Jamie Gallagher appearing on behalf of the Liquor Authority. This matter is being brought before you today for Pazza Notte. It's located at 1375A Avenue of the Americas, New York. It's being brought before you for consideration of an emergency summary order of suspension pursuant to Section 401 Sub 3 of the State Administrative Procedure Act. The evidence presented to you in the form of reports, records, and photographs demonstrates that the public's health, safety, and welfare require emergency action against the licensed premises in the form of an emergency summary order of suspension. This case was initiated by a visit to the premises conducted by Investigator Bart Gottsman and Investigator Martinez yesterday, July 31st, 2020. Investigators observed 9 patrons standing on the sidewalk, not adequately social distancing, waiting in a line. At least 3 of the patrons had their masks off and were consuming alcoholic beverages. A few others were unmasked and standing. The bar manager was identified, Joseph Wells was his name. He advised the investigators that the patrons that they had observed were waiting for tables. None of the patrons standing were in possession of a food item, including the ones who had been served alcoholic beverages. Patrons who were waiting were ordering drinks from a makeshift bar counter at the entrance of the establishment without accompanying food. The licensee is being charged with the following executive order violations. On July 31st, a violation of 202.38. On July 31st, a violation of 202.43. On July 31st, a violation of 202.52. And also on the same date, failure to exercise adequate supervision. The notice of pleading is being prepared and will be mailed promptly. These executive orders were put into place with the purpose of protecting the public health, welfare, and safety imminently at risk in the midst of a deadly viral pandemic, and to prevent people from congregating in licensed establishments or around them in such a way that viral transmission would be more likely. The executive orders are well published, have not been adhered to here to such an extent that it is submitted that emergency summary suspension is warranted to ensure the health, welfare, and safety of the members of the public.
Commissioner Fan, do you have any questions? Commissioner Fan, you're muted.
Sorry, I don't have any questions.
Commissioner Ford, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Chairman Bradley.
No questions.
With that, I'll call for your vote.
This Yes, this licensee has committed multiple violations of the governor's executive order, as Gallagher has just pointed out. They have violated, at the very least, 202.38, 202.43, and 202.52 by allowing outdoor service and to people who are standing without proper social distancing, and not taking control of the frontage up to 100 feet of their storefront, and also allowing open containers. And then they're also allowing alcohol service with no food accompanying. And this establishment is clearly disregarding the governor's executive orders, and due to an imminent threat to public health, safety, and welfare, I'm voting to summarily suspend this license.
Okay, Commissioner Ford, your vote.
I think Commissioner Fan pretty much covered it. I vote to summarily suspend as well for the same reasons.
And Chairman Bradley.
As do I. For the same reasons as Commissioner Fan articulated, I vote to summarily suspend.
All right, the next item I have is 929N, Kings OP 127-2059, Jim and Andy Inc.
Yes, good afternoon. Stephen Armstrong again on behalf of Counsel's Office, this time in support of the summary suspension of license number 1272059, Jim and Andy Incorporated, doing business as Congress, located at 208 Court Street in Brooklyn. This premises is licensed as a tavern serving liquor, wine, and beer. It was first issued a license in December of 2013. Its method of operation is recorded music only, no dancing, no security, and the principal will manage. It's located in a typical mixed-use neighborhood, ground floor businesses with several floors of apartments above them. As to the executive order violations, yesterday, July 31st, investigators Spate, Miller, and Gelfand of the Executive Order Task Force conducted a visit to the premises. Upon arriving at the location, they observed 11 patrons seated at tables in front of the establishment, each with what appeared to be an alcoholic beverage, but with no food visible on the tables. The investigators then observed 2 customers being served alcoholic beverages in open containers at the point of sale outside the entrance. These customers were then permitted to leave the premises without any accompanying food order. Investigators observed a sign on the table by the front door that said all alcoholic beverages are served with chips. There's a small bag of Doritos taped to the sign. Investigators eventually spoke to a manager who informed them that no other food was available or offered for sale beyond these bags of chips. Investigators took photos which clearly show what's described in the report. Now, Governor's Executive Order 202.52 explicitly states licensees can serve alcohol only if the service of such alcoholic beverage is accompanied by the purchase of a food item consistent with the food availability requirement of the license under the Alcoholic Beverage Control Law. The SLA has issued clear guidance on what is and is not a qualifying food item. For a tavern licensee like this one, the minimum food requirement is soup, sandwiches, and similar food items. This food requirement has also received significant attention in the media. The licensee cannot, at this point, plausibly claim they are unaware of this requirement. Therefore, it appears the licensee was operating in willful violation of the governor's executive orders relating to containing the COVID-19 virus, and thus poses a threat to the public health, safety, and welfare. And based on this record, I ask that the members vote to summarily suspend this license pursuant to Section 413 of the State Administrative Procedure Act. Thank you.
Tom, just one thing for the record. Everything Stefan said is true and would have been true even if this location actually had a waiter or waitress bringing alcohol out to these people who were seated. But that's not the way this place was operating. They're basically operating as a stand-up bar, something that's been illegal since March 16th. You know, to the extent this is a takeaway operation, it's being people are being given alcohol with no food, and then I guess permitted to sit down at a few tables that have been set up. So this is something that's been illegal since March 16th. The most recent executive order that Stefan mentioned, .52, reiterated that stand-up bar service is not permitted at all. And just wanted to add that to the record. Thanks.
Okay, then, Commissioner Fan, do you have any questions?
Mr. Armstrong, in the investigative report, there is a note about the license not being at the establishment, and that an expired liquor warehousing license was found on the wall. Are you planning to charge the license?
We could have a charge for a failure to display license. They do have an active license. I don't know why it wasn't displayed, but it certainly should have been.
Okay.
Okay, Commissioner Ford, do you have any questions?
I'm good, thank you.
Chairman Bradley?
I have no questions.
All right, then I'll call for your votes. Commissioner Fan?
This licensee is Council Armstrong and Meyerhoff had that have committed multiple violations of the governor's executive order. Perhaps since they reopened and because they have created a situation where they have a bar outside their establishment and doing business not in the way that's allowable under the governor's executive orders. They've also failed to supervise their staff. They have failed to follow 2.38 by allowing outdoor service that is not socially distanced and not compliant. And then they've also violated 2.52 by serving chips only and no other food service as they serve alcohol to their customers. This licensee is clearly disregarding the governor's executive order. Due to imminent threat to public health, safety, and welfare, I'm voting to summarily suspend this license.
Commissioner Ford?
As I looked at the pictures with the patrons seated outside, you know, it looked like the distance was good between the tables, but the only thing that was missing was food first. And according to the management statement, investigator observations, customers receive a free bag of chips to drink orders and no other food being available or offered, that they failed to exercise adequate supervision. So I think it's pretty obvious this licensee is not complying with executive orders. So I vote to summarily suspend.
And Chairman Bradley, your vote.
I vote to summarily suspend on the same grounds as the other two commissioners. It's obvious that this licensee has no intention of following the executive order guidelines for safe service or safe outdoor service of food and beverage.
All right, thank you. And the next item I have is 929O, New York OP 1160605, Easton & Son, Inc.
Good afternoon again, members. This matter, Lasagna Restaurant, premises name Eisen & Son, Inc., is being brought before you today for consideration of emergency summary order of suspension pursuant to Section 401 Sub 3 of the State Administrative Procedure Act. The premises is located at 196 8th Avenue. It says on their address, AKA 258 West 20th Street, New York, New York. The evidence presented to you in the form of reports, records, and photographs demonstrates that the public's health, safety, and welfare require emergency action against the licensed premises in the form of an emergency summary order of suspension. On July 29th, Investigator Pardo visited the establishment and observed 2 patrons inside the premises, one of whom was drinking an alcoholic beverage at the bar. Indoor service is not permitted in Manhattan, and the investigator photographed the violation. On July 31st of 2020, Investigator Pardo again visited the premises. This time, he observed 5 patrons inside the bar drinking. On this occasion, he did disclose the bartender was present and was not wearing a mask and was subsequently interviewed and identified as the manager of the establishment. The licensee is being charged with the following executive order violations. On July 29th, 202.3 and failure to supervise. On July 31st, 202.3, 202.16 for the failure to wear a mask and failure to supervise. The notice of pleading is being prepared and will be sent out promptly. These executive orders were put into place with the purpose of protecting the public's health, welfare, and safety imminently at risk in the midst of a deadly pandemic, and to prevent people from congregating in and around licensed establishments in such a way that viral transmission would be more likely. These rules are well publicized. The licensee or his manager cannot, at this time, plausibly claim to be ignorant of the executive orders. The individual who was identified unmasked behind the bar was the manager. The premises can have no faith that the licensee will adhere to the executive orders moving forward. The premises is clearly not in compliance as they're allowing indoor consumption, and it is submitted that the emergency summary order of suspension is warranted to ensure the health, welfare, and safety of the members of the public.
Okay, Commissioner Fan, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
And Commissioner Ford, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Chairman Bradley.
I have no questions.
All right, with that, we'll call for your votes. Commissioner Fan.
This licensee has obviously committed multiple violations of the governor's executive order. The executive order 20216 regarding face covering was issued in April, on April 12, 2020. 202.3 was before that. And so, as Council Gallagher mentioned, this licensee really should know better. This is well publicized, and there's no indoor service in Manhattan. This is not a surprise. And moving customers outside as soon as he's told on the 31st that they're not allowed inside shows that he understood that they're doing something that's wrong. But they've been observed at least on 2 occasions doing indoor service. And so this licensee is clearly disregarding the governor's executive order, and due to imminent threat to public health, safety, and welfare, I'm voting to summarily suspend this license.
Commissioner Ford, your vote.
I would also just add to that, employees not wearing face masks. So for all those reasons as stated by Commissioner Fan, in addition to that, I vote to summarily suspend.
Chairman Bradley.
I vote to summarily suspend as well. I mean, there was an obvious consciousness of guilt based on the activities of the licensee. As Commissioner Fan pointed out, the face mask requirement goes back months now, and it really shows a complete lack of respect for your customers at this point if your own employees are not wearing face masks. So it's obvious that this licensee has intentionally violated these executive orders and has no intention, from what I can see, of ever complying with them, so I vote to summarily suspend.
Thank you. All right, Chairman, I have no other items on the calendar. Chairman Bradley, you have anything else?
Nothing else. Thank you all for doing this on a Saturday. Gary, thank your people as well.
Yes,
All right,
yes, thanks to everyone.
All right, this meeting is concluded. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.